Okay, so we've made it. It's somehow the week before Christmas. So I know from doing this for many years with you guys, some of you here today and what listening to the recording have been with me for literal years. And if you hear anything today that's a repeat, that's because we all need it, right? So um I think I wanted to do a Zoom that was more on it focused more on like the niche reasons for stress because I just don't think that they get talked about enough. And I think that whether or not it's the kind of stress that's like in your face, causing an adrenal reaction, like yelling at you, or you're terrified of something, or, super stressed, you're getting audited, like that, there's that kind of stress. And then there's just like the stress of keeping up. There's the stress of being hard on yourself, the stress of dealing with family stuff, with trauma, with body image, like with how do I celebrate and feel festive? So a big thing is, if you have any kind of relationship tension, how do you go into the holiday season, without that overshadowing everything? And that could be any kind of relationship, you know? Um, how do you deal with feeling like you're grieving and maybe it's the first time you're having a holiday season without someone present, whatever the case may be. I feel like that doesn't really get talked about enough. And will I be able to cover everything and dive into everything really deep? No, for the sake of time and not keeping you here all night and my voice. I'm going to do my best to give some basic concepts. And then if there's anything that stands out to you guys today, please text me about it because I would love to figure out, how it applies to your situation. Okay. So, and also in the chat, those of you who are tuned in now, as per usual, I'm a feedback queen. So tell me in the chat if you have any questions or anything is striking you different. Okay. So first of all, I want to know if you guys will share. Let's kick off today in the chat. When you saw what today, the stress management, the holidays, and you might have even seen the follow-up message where I told you guys what we were going to be covering. But to you, what stands out to you as like, oh, I need stress management for this? Is it travel? Is it more emotional? Is it more food based? Give me a basic if you're willing to share in the chat. What stood out to you as the reason you needed to get that extra help with stress management headed into the holiday season? I'm going to kick off and share, a bit about myself too, is going into this holiday season. I think it's when you have a child, I think it brings up, at least for me, it brings up a lot of stuff that you have to work on with your own family. So heading into the holiday season and having to kind of work on that, also trying to make it as magical as possible for Angelo, who's like barely sentient. He's not going to remember any of this, but I will. Like I think working on all of that is definitely a specific stress thing that I wrote a lot of today's advice. I was like, girl, you need to take this advice too. But that's my niche stress headed into the holiday season. Okay, so you guys are saying I spend all of my holidays alone, so I struggle more with even knowing there is a holiday until the day of. Yeah, so it like really like sneaks up on you, and maybe there's not as much of that of those like traditions and the festivities surrounding the holiday. Family dynamics, parents driving me nuts after my surgery, and my two children and their various dysfunctions. You know what? Just throw some jingle bells on that, right? And just like eat some candy, and you have a recipe for a good night, huh? Emotions for sure, and wanting to feel festive and enjoying all the things that come with that. Yeah. Because I just want to say, I am like, Christmas is the thing that usually like keeps me excited through the winter. Like if you know me, you know I'm a summer girl all the way. I love the summer. I am all about it. Give me the heat, give me the sun, give me the daylight, the greenery. Ugh, my favorite. I hate the winter, but I love Christmas. Like just the festivities of it. Um, and it just felt like weird this year. It felt like it like snuck up on you. I don't know. And I heard that sentiment from you guys a lot too in our individual calls. Um, It's the disruption of the routine and a much added extra load. Then just seeing family can be exhausting when all I want to do is just stay at home. Yeah, feeling obligated. And then there's also like the guilt with those obligations and stuff. Stress about traveling with two tiny kittens. Oh, pretending to be okay with my husband as we navigate our marital issues. Yeah, it's a tough one. You're not alone. That's why it's on the list. Heard a lot of that over the last few months. And then over the last couple weeks has definitely been like, how am I going to stay in a car with them for X amount of time while driving? How am I going to take pictures? And, like all of those things, so I think that's definitely a niche one I put up on here for a reason. Um, Balancing work and time to prep for family stuff for Christmas itself, wrapping gifts, baking, shopping. That's the other thing. I feel like this year it's been like weird even when it comes to the excitement around like baking and cooking. Um, I don't know, just personally, it just didn't feel like the holidays. It didn't feel like that fun, joyous time to like cook and stuff the way it usually does. Weird. I felt like I've had no time to shop or anything. That's the other thing. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to place this whole ingredient order in through Instacart. The party I was planning on having, we had to cancel because literally everyone got the flu. And my cousin Vinny, anybody, where he's like, the whole store got the flu. Literally the whole store got the flu. So it's just been crazy. But before that, I was like planning out, okay, I'm gonna cook all these things and like I gotta sit here in Instacart and order. I don't have time to go get it. I typed my stuff while my husband tried showing me a Marvel thing and I got overstimulated. So perfect timing for this. Oh, that's the thing I didn't necessarily throw on here is the overstimulation. That's really something. Why is everything does it not feel, and it's not about like I'm not talking about like our skills at managing and that's why things feel more overstimulating. I just feel like there's a lot more stimulus in general this year, and across the board for everybody. I feel like everyone I've talked to, and also us too, like is juggling so many things that the idea of making another decision or having another sound come into the mix, just something like that, just feels like you're tapped out, right? I don't know what it is. Is this just like an getting older thing? I don't know. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna get through it. But all of this extremely relatable. And I don't know if you guys, as other people, are adding their stresses. If you're sitting there and you're like, oh yeah, mm-hmm. So again, my hope we're not gonna dive into a groundbreaking way here, but I hope that I can give you a little bit of perspective. So it's a little easier, and I am here to address things one on one, as always. Okay. So the first thing I jotted down here is food. So stressing about eating perfectly and what balance is when you either want to stay really strict and you feel like you can't, when you feel like all you want to do is be no holds bar and just eat whatever and just you don't want to have to think about it. Whatever it is, feeling like at this point a week out, stressing about food could piss you off. Put a one in the chat if you can relate to that. Stressing about food pissing you off a week prior because you're just like, I don't want to think about this. I don't want to have to plan around this. I don't want to have to worry about this, all of that. So, and then feeling like, well, I screwed up already. It's almost the new year. Screw this. Why not? And if you remember from not last week, because Juliana cooked last week, but the week prior, I talked about the spilling milk example where it compounds. And if you just keep dumping milk on top of the spill, then it's a huge mess, instead of cleaning it up each time. So then relationship tension, like I said, so stressing about being around people for the holidays. Maybe it's family. Maybe, I mean, let's be honest. I try my best to not bring politics and stuff into this, but I just feel like this year is a very polarizing year in terms of political beliefs. And I know that's something I've heard a lot in our calls recently have been, how am I going to be around people? And like, I'm afraid to trigger some kind of conversation that I don't want to happen, or I can't be around people that are, like all of the different facets of emotional stress that go with that. Or how about traveling with a partner or spending the holidays, anything festive with a partner that you're working on things with? that's really difficult to do, and not wanting to, lose the holiday, but also not wanting to allude to things being all okay. That's a tough balance. And like, who the hell do if you're in therapy, a therapist, and then I know we talk on our calls about it, but like, that's not a very widely addressed, stressful topic. But I do think that, you know, I think a lot of relationship strains also do happen around this time of year. So, um, self-image, right? So issues dressing for events, packing for travel. I think with hormonal issues, especially, I don't know if you guys ever experienced this, but sometimes in the past, I felt like I would have to travel with like three different sizes of outfits because I didn't know just how swollen or bloated or overstimulated with seams I was going to be when I finally arrived where I had to be. And then it felt like I got there and I didn't even like anything that I brought and I didn't want to wear it. And I was annoyed it was a mess when I got home. Just me. But figuring out what to do for, events, whether you're traveling or not, um, just not feeling comfortable seeing people that maybe you haven't seen in a while, not wanting to, this is a big one, not wanting people to, especially ones you haven't seen in a while, not having to eat differently in front of people and draw any extra attention. Anyone relating to these topics? Or self-image, maybe even for yourself, like the winter, it's just so dreary. And I mean, we're not getting as much sunlight. Our energy dips. We got much less time to do things, even though, it's early in the day. You're not going to want to go do the things you used to do it when it's lighter out later, just by default. Feeling like schlumpy in the environment can lead to feeling schlumpy about yourself, right? And then you throw that in with balancing how to eat, how to get through this time of year, all of that. It's a recipe, whether it doesn't have anything to do with other people being present, it's still a recipe to maybe not feel as connected and present in your body. At least I have found. Okay. And then grief, right? So I think grieving or mourning the living is a really hard thing, um, especially this time of year, especially if you have a long history of tradition built around this time of year. Um, Lost pets, I think, is a big one that people just don't consider unless they're the ones going through losing their pet. But you have a part of your family, it's grief like anything else. It's just kind of treated like brushed over because it's not, no one connects to that pet. I don't even want to call them a pet, but that family member like you do. So I think going into the holiday season, it's really easy to feel, even if no one does this to you, but to feel almost invalid in your grieving. But that's important, right? Especially if it's your first one without feeling like, or a big one, pregnancy loss. I remember when we were going through the losses, I was like pissed off at anything Christmassy. Like obviously, logically, like not, I didn't blame anything, but I was just like, I was real grinchy, real grinchy. And I think that also turned for me when I get really stressed and really upset, I go the way of just not eating. Like I just don't get hungry. It's a part of my past, with my disorders and stuff is just, I don't really care. I kind of go, what's the word I'm looking for? Like I have like apathy towards a lot of things at that point. So food's the first one, but I think feeling like you shouldn't be upset still is a really big one. If you feel invalidated in being upset, not wanting to, put up Christmas decorations, like all those things can manifest from grief and nobody talks about it and everybody's celebrating, and I think that really is an important thing to address, So see what you guys are saying. I'm literally ordering pizza for dinner because there was no real motivation to cook other than making sure my husband is fed and cooking is my love language. Yeah, I mean, I think what also trying to balance having the hormone friendly options when you can, and then having those moments of, we just like convenience, like we just need to get fed, and feeling like you can build off of those this time of year is important too. Because I even know people who feel weird going grocery shopping too close to Christmas, which is funny, even if like I've done that before too, where it's like we're not even traveling, like we're taking a day trip to my in-laws. There's no reason to not go grocery shopping. So things kind of just get wacky. And don't even get me started on the week between Christmas and New Year's. I call that purgatory. I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know what day it is. I'm wearing the same outfit the whole week. Like it's like the Twilight Zone. Um, so, at least for me, let's get into it. So I wrote a few concepts here. Number one, just remember, and this isn't meant to be sounding preachy or like patronizing, but if you need to hear this as a reminder, you are in control. You are not at the mercy of anything in your immediate life, obviously. That could be an in-depth conversation. But right now, in terms of your day-to-day, in terms of your where you go, what you do, who you speak with, what you eat, when you go to bed, when you do it, you are in control. You are able to decide for yourself what is best for you, right? So I know that you're probably like, okay, I get that. But sometimes we just need that reminder when it feels like we are at the mercy of our day. We're at the mercy of work, family member, whatever. Obviously, I mean, you got to go to work, right? But when it comes to what choices you make within those confines of work, home, responsibilities, things like that, you are always in control. And everything is always figure outable, even if it sucks a little. That's my favorite thing to remember. Everything, again, we can sit here and argue the specifics of how that's not 100% true. But in general, with the shit you're going to deal with in the day to day, pretty much everything's figure outable, even if it sucks initially. So that's the first thing as you go through this season, right? So strategizing and working with your brain, your schedule, your body, your life, all of those things, it's super important to remain in control, of your choices and stuff. But you have to embrace yourself to be able to do this. You have to not be mad at yourself for not knowing what the hell to cook, having no time to do things, not liking your Christmas decorations, shopping last minute. If you're too busy beating yourself up about those things, you're not in control. You're just mad at yourself for who you were 5 minutes ago, you know? So I think it's super important to remember that. Number two, I'm going to try not to say that at the end of every point I make, guys, I promise. But yeah, to follow up on that, number two is just driving it home is accept yourself for who you are and the choices that you're making. Commit to those choices, own those choices, but in doing that, remain aware of the choices that you're making. I mentioned this, I think it was the Zoom before last. I said keep a list of the foods and the situations that where you're eating, and you need to do some kind of disclaimer, some kind of justification, some kind of like explanation for it. I'm not saying this to be condescending because I think it's important to become really present. If we're so guilty about food choices that we don't even want to think about the fact that we made them, how can we possibly learn from them and strategize? We're putting emotion into the mix when really we just need to look at it as data, like I always tell you. So the choices that you're making in terms of like, let's say food or whatever, write down, keep a list. All right, on this day at this time, I had this because I was hungry. I had this and there wasn't anything else. I had this on this time because I was craving it, because I wanted to, whatever the case may be. When you do that and you go back and you look at it, you can then see and say, okay, well, how are the things that I'm going for and that I'm budgeting for setting me back in my results, or which is fine sometimes, right? Or getting the results I want. Like, is this worth it? Is it panning out to be worth it? Or is it just, something we can fix, like convenience or cravings or whatever? So that would be the thing. Accept yourself for who you are. Allow yourself to data check, because you're not holding yourself, like you're not like kicking your own ass because you ate Christmas cookies. You know what's going to happen if you eat too many Christmas cookies. You're a grown adult. You don't need to feel guilty. You just, you're aware. You just make choices accordingly. And when you have that mindset, guys, it's like reverse psychology in a weird way, where it's kind of like you've given yourself the room to do that. So you end up making different choices. It starts with acceptance. You can't kick your own ass into like being the perfect person. We've all tried, okay? So, number three, manage and budget what you
Mhm.
want to eat, what you want to do, what boundaries you want to go back on, because sometimes it has to happen, right? In the craziness of the holiday plan. Sometimes, you know, I get it. Sometimes you don't want to be the stick in the mud, you know? So sometimes things are going to come and they're going to throw you off your course of plans. And I know a lot of us really hate that. Okay. So manage and budget what you do and try to remember that this is only a week or so of craziness. And we're not going to keep dumping the milk. We're going to clean up the milk and get right back to it after the holidays. So, really, if you're managing and budgeting, like if you go to a function and they have some random ass, bread there that's not even that exciting, you decide for yourself if that's worth the additional spilled milk, right? And if it's not, maybe you want to eat the thing your great Aunt Sally makes that you never get to eat, except, God willing, we got another year with her. She's making something you like to eat. Please eat that thing. Are you kidding? You know? But when you allow yourself the room to do that, are you going to have 5 pieces of Aunt Sally's casserole? No, you're probably going to have one hearty piece and say that was delicious and move on. So I think that being able to manage and budget, it goes in line with what I was saying in number one with you are in control. You can strategize. You can find ways where you can say, no, this is totally worth it. If I feel inflamed or swollen or I got the runs or whatever tomorrow, I'm home. This is worth it. You don't think I do that? I do that. I, there are times that I do my hormone friendly versions that I have now figured out and love. But there are times that I just go for the friggin' thing that's been made because it's part of the experience. Do that, but don't waste that extra bit of hardship on your body on things that aren't even worth it. And if it's something where when I said manage and budget, if you're finding yourself in a situation where you're being forced to eat something that doesn't feel great in your body, it's either that or eat nothing. Obviously, fed is best, but that situation prompts us to figure out a solution so that that doesn't keep happening and you don't have to keep making that choice. You know, that all comes with allowing yourself to manage and budget. You're in control. Okay. So, what did I write here? I wrote manage and budget what you eat, do while prioritizing your health, mental and physical. Don't waste it on bullshit. Hear my voice. Don't waste it on bullshit. Okay. Um, recovery, number four, recovery periods and flares eventually end. Does it suck that you have to deal with it? Absolutely. I wish on every single one of you. I wish I love you all, but like I wish we didn't know each other. Because like I wish you guys didn't relate to stuff, you weren't dealing with stuff. Wish it for all of us. But unfortunately, here we are. And I would be lying if I said that sometimes my mother-in-law's Italian lemon glazed delicious, I'm like gonna drool, Christmas cookies that are just not the friggin' same when you make them gluten free. Sometimes they're, like I said, are worth it. And for me, what happens, especially now, I don't think I've told many of you guys about this, but I'm starting to think that I am celiac, that I've developed celiac. It's common for type 1s. I've seen some patterns in my blood work and some symptoms that really correlate with that. So I do have to be super strict this year. But back before that, it was just good old colitis that couldn't handle the wheat. So I knew I was going to feel like crap, right? And when I was in that place, I was like, I used to be like, oh, why do I have to deal with this? Like, and you can still feel that way. But I used to almost take it like I was like cursed. And like I almost allowed that to be the ceiling on my happiness. And instead, I mean, like, what can you do? What can you do? I didn't ask to be, have an immune system that likes to strong arm, likes to kick my own ass. I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask for diabetes at 7. This is the hand I've been dealt. So that being said, I'm not going to double down on the misery. This is stuff I would tell myself. I'm not going to double down on the misery. I almost plan for eating things that I know I really want to eat. I almost plan for it where I'm like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to have the comfiest day ever. In the past, I would like not book calls the next day. I would, make sure that I had like my comfiest pajamas ready. I had comfort movies picked out. It might be a little bit different with a toddler this year who's like dominated my living room. But I digress. I think of flares as having an end. And when they happen, I don't double down on the misery. I say to myself, well, okay, let me support myself through this. And when you do that, it's not you being overindulgent or lazy or anything like that. You can sit there and be like, why did I have to eat that? Like, I can't believe my body does this. Other people, you can do that, but that like sucks, right? So, like, maybe feel the feelings, but try to just be as gentle as possible on yourself because it's going to end and you're going to feel better again. And what can you do? You know, such is life. We just move on. Easier said than done. Again, if this is individually, if anything stands out to you, even if you're like, Michelle, you sound like an asshole, amazing. Let's talk about it. Like, I love those convos. So remember, recovery periods and flares eventually end. You will be right back on it. And this is another one. Every hour, every minute really, but if you want to break it down to something more realistic, every hour or so is another opportunity to make a different choice, to go a different way, whatever. Your blood sugars usually reset if you're non-diabetic within an hour or so. That should be the normal insulin window. Your digestion, in about 2 hours, the food you ate is poop. So, what are we sitting here saying every day, every week? I'll try again tomorrow. Don't feel so bad because you literally have the opportunity to turn it around as soon as something's done. Okay? So, um, this is a big one this is going to sound so stupid because it's so hard to do. And I know this is something to work on. And you've probably heard me say this and thought it yourself, right? But stop thinking about timelines and stop thinking about other people's opinions, being burdened with what someone else thinks about something, you know, and that can go into so many different areas. Let's take this down to if you're struggling with a partner, right? And you're worried that they're going to start thinking a certain, like if you're too nice, you're having too much of a good time, they're going to start to think something. You can always keep it real. You can remind them. You're not evil if you do that. You're not crazy and fake if you enjoy being in the present, but you know that there is stuff to work on, that you're still expecting the other person to work on and working on yourself. That still exists outside of Christmas, but you don't have to, if it feels more natural to be present and to try to relax and enjoy for those few days, you're not going to negate anything that you're feeling or working on with your partner in those few days. Now, if your natural way of feeling is less than warm, then I think that's important to recognize too, that that's the way you're feeling and that you can't force yourself. You can't be fake. You can't be worried about other people's opinions, other people's holidays. Like we all deserve, and I mean, I'm not trying to say like screw everyone else. We are all on this Zoom, all of us are considerate human beings. I am saying that when you stop thinking about the timeline of how things should go, we should be over this by now. I should be not grieving anymore. I should know how to eat. I should. It's all bullshit, right? If you stop thinking about timelines, you stop thinking about other people's opinions. So and so thinks this about the way I eat. So and so, might look at my back roll, in this dress, whatever. I might know the back rolls there. When you stop thinking about all that crap, you're still going to go through the holiday. You're still going to be you. You're still going to wear some form of clothing. You're still going to do all those things. But if you are freaking out over shoulds and timelines and people and everything like that, you're going to go through the holiday freaking the fuck out, you know? So it ends up being like, what's the point then in all of the things that don't feel good? Do what you want to do. It's your holiday. So, like I said, that's a pretty broad one. So I don't want you to think that I'm like, oh, Michelle said not to worry about people's opinions. Like, I don't think that that was like the stroke of genius that cured everybody. But I think it is, again, important to say and remind you. And I hope it's something that we can take into, one on one. All right, last one here. Let yourself be authentic in the moment. what I think I basically just said that part with number five there. I repeat things that are written in my notes. I swear I jump ahead. Good old ADHD. But to drive it home, right, is let yourself be authentic in the moment. If you want to feel your feelings, you want to be freaking sad, be sad. If you feel like you have to be sad, but you would really just be neutral or jolly and it feels weird, be however you want to be. It's a few days. The best way to get through it is however you get through it. I'll be here to help and support you guys on the other side of it. You know, you don't have to go into the new year season with a bang. We can just keep moving. Just keep it moving like any other day. So if at any point in the next week, if you catch yourself with your cortisol going up, you know, you feel stressed about something and it's something deep, something like what we've discussed here, I'm still here for you. You know, the community is still here for you. I love how, you know, for how different everybody is within the CCA community, there is so much that each of us, I mean, I'm privy to the information, you know, when I can tell you, there is so much that all of you guys have in common. So if anybody is feeling, you know, particularly lonely, um, you know, not understood, um, nostalgic, like whatever it is, I know society has told us like don't trauma dump, don't include people, whatever. Obviously have discretion on how much you share, but know that there are people here and we're all going through our own shit in some capacity and we can all just, you know, we can rely on each other that way. So please reach out. Let me or someone know, you know, if you're if you're struggling during the holiday season. And obviously, before I let you guys go for the night, next week is the on Thursday's Christmas, so there will be no Zoom. But I'm going to be posting a really fun scavenger hunt and giveaway. So keep an eye out for that. Okay. And I hope all of you have a wonderful holiday. I look forward to talking to you one on one. Okay. I hope this helped. Bye. Good night.